People are growing more food than ever. You can see that by the fact that this past year, many of the seed companies were running out of various varieties of seeds because so many people were buying. Many people do it because they want to have better nutrition. They grow it themselves. Other people are doing it because they look out on the horizon, they see political unrest, societal upheaval, and they think, man, I need to grow my own food. Other people just like the idea of being self-sufficient as much as possible. But whatever it is, when you're looking to grow your own food, you want to grow food that has good nutrition and you can get a good crop, a good yield. And this next crop is one of the top 3 crops that you might want to grow if you were seeking to truly be self-sustaining. The time has come to harvest my corn. And I'm going to share with you why corn may be one of the most important crops that you could grow if you were looking to be self-sustaining. And secondarily, this is one of the highest yielding crops there are. But if you were only to eat corn, you would get a certain disease that would ultimately cause dementia and then death. What disease is that? We're going to find out at the end of this video. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. And I'm right next to my Cascade Ruby Gold corn. You may be looking at it and you might be thinking, Chad, that is some very short corn. And you would be absolutely right. This is not what you typically think of as like a sweet corn. You're probably used to sinking your teeth into one of the great tastes of summer. And I mean, I love the taste of sweet corn, and this is not sweet corn at all. This is some beautiful corn, even though it may be very short plants. You can see that you can even on some of these plants get a decently long piece of corn. This is a grain corn. This is something that you would use to make corn meal, and that's what I'm actually going to be doing. And the time has come. The reason I'm harvesting right now, some of them probably could go a little bit longer, but I'm going to be getting rain tonight and off and on for the next several days. So I'm just going to take them in, and you know, I'm going to be harvesting them now. But I want to share with you one of the reasons why growing corn is so very important. Now, thinking about something like grains, the most common grain that you typically think of would be what bread is made out of, and that is wheat, right? Now, wheat is one of the great staples throughout history, through the Roman Empire, back in Rome, and this is what sustained the Roman Empire. But something like corn, they had never really had back in Rome. Why was that? Because they hadn't yet been to the New World, and this comes from the New World, not from the Old World. And it's interesting that the greatest producers, many or most of, I would say, of the greatest producing crops in the world are actually New World plants. And when I say New World, it doesn't mean that you can only grow these in the New World, but that they came originally from the New World, from Central and South America. You had maize or you had corn that began, it was in the warmer regions of the earth, but it began to spread north up into North America. Ultimately, the Native Americans shared it with the Pilgrims when they came and helped sustain them because of corn. So this is a very, very important crop. Comparing this to wheat, you can get upwards of 3 times as many calories or 3 times the yield per acre with corn than you can with wheat. And that's why the world would have struggled to have, 7-8 billion. We're supposed to cap out at 8-point-some billion people. Just in probably 40 years or so, we're supposed to cap out with the apex, the very top of the population growth, and it's supposed to go down after that. I share that in another video. But we would have struggled to actually feed the entire world if we were just using grains like wheat. But with things like corn and things like potatoes, they get 3 times the yield per acre, 3 times the calories per acre. So you can get roughly around 15 million calories per acre with standard growing methods of corn in the United States. But here's the thing. And actually, to back up, 15 million calories per acre. If the average person would eat about 750,000 calories per year, they probably eat closer to 1 million in the United States, but they don't have to. The reason we do is because we're one of the heaviest countries in the world. That's not an insult, it's just a statement of fact that if we would eat closer to what would be healthy for more Americans, roughly 2,000 calories a day, we would be close to 750,000 calories a year. Now, with a full yield of roughly 15 million calories per acre. You could feed about 20 people per acre off corn. Plants are actually the highest yielding. If you want calories, plants are actually the highest yielding things you could grow, especially things like potatoes and corn. Now, it's interesting that to grow this, it takes a little bit of work, but probably not nearly as much work as it would take to make something like wheat. Wheat is a very labor-intensive process compared to something like corn. I mean, corn just comes on a nice little stick, you know, cob, and you know, you see them in the right around the fall time. You see people, they pull back the shucks like this, and you tie them together, you bunch them up and hang them. Well, that's cute, you know, but really that's a great way to actually to dry them. If you see the rain coming like we do, we see rain coming tomorrow, you can pull this back and you can hang them. You could just break this off, that's fine, and you can lay them out on tables to dry. That's a perfectly fine option. Or you can literally hang them from the rafters by, you can actually maybe even tie some of the shucks together like this. You can put a couple next to each other, and just to show you how to harvest, very, very simple. You come to your corn and you simply break it off. No great trick to that, and you pull the shucks back, and you can either break them off, or you can tie them together. So you can actually do that and have these hooked up together simply like this. You can have a few, maybe 3, 4, hang them upside down from the rafters, or simply break them off, and like I said, you can put them on tables. Now, this particular kind called Cascade Ruby Gold. Cascade Ruby Gold is actually, it has 3 different colors, and kind of this reddish, I think they call this maybe the maple, I think, and then there's kind of a more yellow color, I understand. And each one of them, you can grow them together, and each one has solid colors on the cob, but then they have different tastes so that you can use them a little bit differently. You can make them into, you can grind them up and make them into cornmeal or Johnny cakes or cornbread, and everybody likes cornbread. Every human being likes cornbread. At least they should. Cornbread is fantastic, but it's very easy to harvest, and if it's totally dried down, you probably be good enough, and you may not even have to go hang them somewhere. But I'm going to. I think it would be best so that I don't get mold on my corn here. And you might be asking, well, why not just grow the sweet corn? Now, sweet corn is wonderful. Like I said, it tastes so very good, but sweet corn isn't something that most people dry, and I'm looking to have something. You want to grow things that will, if you're looking for sustainability as much as possible. I will not have enough this year to sustain us, but we're going to work toward it each year. We're going to try to get more and more as we do. But if you want to make it through the winter, you know, sweet corn only lasts for a very short time period. You know, kind of the end of summer and maybe the beginning of fall, you have your sweet corn, but it doesn't really hold over very well. Now, I have read that back in the 1800s that people actually used it. They would dry the sweet corn and they would use it like a grain corn. And so it is possible. I've just never tried it. If you try it, if you have tried it, or you know somebody who does, I'd love to hear from you in the comments about that, because I'd like to know more about that. I love the idea of using sweet corn as more like a grain in the winter, but I've never actually tried that. So I'm going to show you also how to you know, not only the harvesting is simple. We just showed you. You wait until it dries down as much as possible. Like I said, if you have to pick it a little bit early, you just want to make sure that it dries out afterward. But I'm also going to show you how we actually get the kernels off the cob, and then they will stay in storage after they're dried until we want to grind them. We'll grind them for the meals that we choose to make, whether it would be something like Johnny cakes, like I said, or polenta, or the cornbread, or, you know, the cornmeal. So I'm going to show you how we do that, how we prepare that. But this is just you know, it's a great time of year. Fall is so special. This weather right now is nigh unto perfection. I just absolutely love it. And still hear the crickets before the frost come. We will have another frost this coming week. But I want to make sure to show you how I'm gonna gather up some more corn, but I will show you how we're actually getting it off the cob, and then I'm actually going to show you how we grind it down also. Now, one of the things about corn is a great food in general. For those of you who struggle with gluten, if you're the part of the 6% of society that struggles with gluten, you know, this corn will work great for you in general. Now, once again, 94% of people do perfectly fine with gluten, but if you're a person who has to be gluten-free, corn is a great crop. But here's the thing, you wouldn't want to just eat corn, and I'll bet you won't just eat corn, but you may know during the terrible part of history, during slavery, many of the slaves had to subsist nearly exclusively on corn. And the trouble with that is that corn is low in something called niacin, or vitamin B3. And when these slaves had to live nearly exclusively on corn, as they began to get less and less of this B3 in their diet, they began to exhibit some of the 4 Ds of pellagra. Number 1, they would have something like diarrhea once they got a low enough level of B3, dermatitis, so they begin to have skin issues, and if it would progress long enough, you'd begin to have dementia, and if it progressed even further, it ultimately would end in death. So corn is not a end-all of food security. So you say, Chad, I shouldn't eat corn then, right? Because I'm going to get pellagra. No. Most humans don't eat a mono diet. I don't suggest a mono diet. Almost nobody does suggest a mono diet, meaning just eating one thing. Now, one food that you can almost live exclusively on is, you can live almost exclusively on potatoes. But corn is not the same. You may even see that, you know, people have gone easily a year or even years on nearly simply potatoes. But corn is not the same. So you want to eat other things that have plenty of niacin in it. So you eat your greens, you eat your kale, you eat your beans, and if you add those to your diet, you're going to have plenty of the niacin in your diet. So corn is very healthy. It can give you tons of calories in a relatively small space if you have adequate soil, that is. You have to really have a very healthy, nutritious soil. Before you plant your corn, you probably want to use either compost or manure, obviously, or if you're using, you know, some kind of fertilizer. But in general, if you're going the natural route, either manure or compost would be a great way to go. So plant your corn, and God bless, and have a great day.